Welcome to SchezzWho, your top spot for politics. My role in bringing great content on current events requires your role as a great viewer. So like this video, subscribe to the SchezzWho channel and comment on this video and share it around. Let's shout out that's what gets this show going here. Here are the things that are important to me, beginning with Mr. Farley Perkins at the Farley Perkins Agency. If you need insurance needs in the 757, hit up 757-271-6655 to help you out. Let's say you're in the mood for just a sweet treat like a shake or some ice cream. Head on over to High Street in Portsmouth for ELG Sweet Boutique, and they'll help you out with that. What if you just wanted some good Southern food? Well, also in Portsmouth, at 4206 Portsmouth Boulevard is Ellen's Homestyle and Barbecue Express LLC. She also has a great location across from Regent University in Virginia Beach in University Shops. So look out for Ellen's Homestyle and Barbecue Express. And don't forget my good friend Mr. Seiko Varner, who brought me into doing podcasting back around 2020. His business, Positive Vibes Incorporated, will help you with financial needs. He also created the Hampton Roads Green Book, a fine application to help you find Black-owned businesses in Hampton Roads. And also the Black Swan Mindset, which is a division of SchezzWho right here on this channel, has some great content too, put on by my lovely wife, Andrea Dixon Shedviner. So look forward to that stuff. All right, so last night was all around Mamdani won the Democrat primary in New York City. And that's very welcome to me, as I want to see an America where the biggest city can have an elected Muslim Democrat socialist. It's a turning point, and it's giving me the impression we really can't have anybody win in America if the candidate is good enough. As a pretty left-leaning individual such as myself, I do love to see it. And I love to host this political show, interviewing cool people. We just finished Virginia's primary elections back around a week ago, and I was able to recently interview Donna Charles, whom after a snafu or a sabotage in her attempt to get signatures to run independent for governor of Virginia, is now running a write-in campaign for governor of Virginia. Which brings me to tonight's guest. John Curran, or Curran, is running for lieutenant governor as a write-in candidate after he didn't make the Republican primary field to challenge John Reed. And I am very thankful to have him on and talk Virginia politics and his campaign. So, Mr. John, let me bring you on. Welcome. How are you on this great evening?
Doing great. Thanks for having me.
I'm very thankful to have you on the show. Let's sit down and talk a little about some politics here. So, I understand you moved to Virginia while pretty young and settled in Annandale. And if I'm correct, that's in Northern Virginia, around the Fairfax area. Can you tell me a bit about your Virginia background before you joined the Navy?
It's your typical, growing up in Northern Virginia. I went to school, played sports, had, the same childhood growth type thing. My father was a federal government executive. Mom was a stay-at-home mother. And, it was your typical suburban growing up. Went into high school, had plans to continue on to go to college then, playing football. A friend of mine and I got caught up with a recruiter and Navy recruiter. And after looking at it, decided that that was a better option and ended up going into the Navy.
And that's what takes me to my next question. So you joined the Navy, you served in the Navy, you left the Navy and worked in and owned, to my understanding, several businesses related to the defense industry, among other things. Can you take some time to break down what you've done after you left the Navy?
Well, I did, first straight coming out of the Navy, I had an interesting Navy career, which put me in positions that most people don't get to be in, but gave me a lot of different opportunities. So when I came out, the first job was with a defense contractor doing mostly designing communication systems for interiors of Navy ships. We moved out of that, expanded that to actually an international base of dealing with other governments around the world, of militaries, obviously all allies, expanding the systems that we designed. After that, I actually then opened up, got involved in a minority-owned construction company, doing mostly government construction. We specialized in things like hospitals and all, but we did some really big jobs. We did the Air Force Band recording studios in DC. We renovated Malcolm Grove Medical Center, which is on Bowling Air Force Base, is their hospital there. We did the Situation Room in the White House, to name a few. And then tragically, my partner there, the founder of the company, was killed in a car accident. And we lost that company. We ended up closing it up. I went on, opened up a company to do privatization of the federal government, which was actually a fallout from the Clinton-Gore administration. That their idea was to downsize, believe it or not, the government by privatizing certain agencies. So we looked at that. We put in a contract to do that. Started out very strongly. However, 9/11 took place. The opportunity stopped because obviously the federal government had to reconsider those agencies they were looking at close after 9/11 and the fact that we were going into a war at that time. I then went from there into a alternative energy company, making alternative fuels out of trash. And based on that, we went into all types of other alternative energy. We did some infrastructure consulting that took us around the world to developing countries, helping to do infrastructure and obviously energy. That company was later sold out to a European firm. And then from there, I went into just business consulting, which led me into what I did currently is transitional CEO work, primarily working on default companies that are in distress, or venture capital firms who buy out distressed companies and go in and turn them around, put them back on the track and get the permanent CEOs in place. So
some very good stuff. I want to shout out a couple of Facebook comments we've had as the show has been running, leading off with Mr. Dean Davison out in the Western Virginia area. I believe is also a great meteorologist and a NASCAR fan, if I remember Mr. Davison. So thank you for saying the show is good and then unfair to the candidates. And even though you are now saying that say no to democratic socialism, as you're a libertarian, good sir, I hope you are appreciating having on Mr. John Curran today as we talk about some politics. And I want to go into the next thing relevant to politics itself. You have a political science bachelor's like I do. You also have a master's in economics. Now, my master's was sports management, but that's also relevant to politics. It's very relevant stuff. And how do you bring both of those to the table in your ideal as a lieutenant governor?
Well, the political science degree, as you have one, is it's a whole lot of stuff to put it in. It gives you an understanding on the thoughts of politics. I actually got my degree. I didn't get my degrees until I was in my mid-50s, actually. Went back to school to get them. The economic degree I have actually it's an MBA with a secondary with economics, which they actually describe as government and public resource economics. And that basically goes right hand in hand when you start looking to expand the economy in the government and the state, understanding where private investment, government investment, the assets and resources have to come together, how they affect each other, returns on investment, capitalization on investments to bring in businesses. And as we all see, a lot of times people we're going to give a break to get a company to come in here. Well, does that break actually accomplish anything or not? You have to weigh each thing to see if it's beneficial at the end of the day. Does it make sense? Does the areas it make sense? In Virginia, there's so many areas in the state of Virginia right now that need economic development to it, while most of it's going into certain areas that are becoming so expensive, people can't even move there to work or live. So I believe bringing that in and my background in business will be a strong foot to bring those things, build jobs, And as I've been saying, I'm not pushing jobs are important. I'm pushing careers, because a career gives people a future and stability. And when you have that, you can settle down, you can lay roots, you can have families, children, and then those build communities and it becomes stronger. And that's where people say, how do you make a stronger Virginia? Well, you make a stronger community, stronger families, and that's how you get it out. So,
and I agree with the idea that careers are, just in terms of the feeling of your attachment to what you do for a living, is more so than that of just having a job. You don't feel
right,
as attached to a job. The career, that's what's really important.
right. And there's
Um,
you can move up too. You have
yeah.
expansion, you can get advancement, and that's very important as well. So,
Now, I want to shift a little bit more into your intent, your overall goal here. I've admitted where I am now politically, and I have admit I used to be more conservative and libertarian, and it sort of went conservative, libertarian, and then progressive. I remember voting for Bob McDonnell even back in the day. But you're running for lieutenant governor. I'm just curious, what could you say is the reason why you want to be lieutenant governor?
when I moved down to Williamsburg about 5.5 years ago. When I moved here, I had some people come to me, and I ended up running for board of supervisors. I ran against a very strong um, competitor who was an independent, been around for 20 some odd years, and was pretty strong. But while I was doing it, I was able to meet a lot of delegates and state senators and started seeing really what was going on in our state house behind the scenes. And the barriers that are put up between party lines, no matter which side you're on, both sides do the same thing. They get in charge, or they have something, they block bills in committees. They don't like somebody because they did something to them before, so they could bring the answer to world peace into a committee, and they'll block the bill just as payback. All that ever affects is us, the people of Virginia. And I kind of, even though I started this as a Republican, I'm running as a write-in now, and technically that makes me an independent. And I have upset several of the Republican Party people for running as a write-in at this point. My values, I think, are Republican conservative-based values, but these party line barriers need to end. And I've negotiated enough deals. I've worked with unions. I've worked with individuals. Um, Going through my career, I was up on the Hill a lot, either trying to get money. I've testified to Congress on different issues over the years. And when you break it down at the end, if you pull the labels off, most of us are 80 to 90% in agreement on most of the issues at hand. It's a matter of getting to the finish line. And somebody needs to become an influencer, for the best term I could come up with, to force the parties. And the way you force the parties is take this backroom battles that happen and bring transparency and accountability to it. The lieutenant governor constitutionally only breaks ties in the Senate and oversees the Senate, but they carry a pretty big megaphone with them. And if a lieutenant governor calls a press conference, they get a national press conference if they want it. And when they start calling out members of the Senate, members of the legislature who are blocking bills that impact the people every day, accountability comes pretty quick, and it's pretty hard to face down your constituents when you're being called out. And I'm ready to do it. I didn't do this because I had long-term desires of being the governor or moving to the Senate or Congress or something. I got fed up with the people who are paying the price for party line politics is the people that work every single day, and that needed to stop. So that's why I decided to do it.
And you can now become an authoritative, borderline expert opinion on the idea of, even though you might have a personal belief in terms of, say, you feel like you're a part of a party, but you try to run for a party designation, and then you have to be an independent due to some situations. And you can tell where you can improve upon them. Speaking of, would you like to take this moment to a little bit describe the situation that led you from running in a primary or wanting to run in a primary to now being in a writing candidate?
Well, we had a fantastic campaign going. As you know, you have to run for a statewide office for governor, lieutenant governor, attorney general. You have to have minimum of 10,000 signatures from throughout the state. And that also breaks down to 400 signatures from each congressional district. Well, anybody will tell you if that saw us at events and stuff, our team was amazing. You'd show up at let's say a gun show. We had tables, clipboards with the petitions out to sign. We at least had 4 or 5 individuals. At one point, we had, I think, 10, 12 young college students that were collecting for us. When you look at the opponents that we were going against, they had maybe 1 or 2 at the most collecting. So we had these signatures going. Got into a dispute, though, with a member of the campaign who literally tried to extort it. I have a letter demanding money in exchange to get the signatures back, which I was not going to fold to. They took it. We ended up going to a Commonwealth attorney and the police. It ended up going to the state police because since the signatures are statewide, jurisdictionally, the state police have the jurisdiction of investigating that. It left us, though, short with what we had in hand. Signatures. I think we had 5,700 out of the 10,000. We calculated somewhere around 12 to 13,000 signatures ready to go in. It left us short. We submitted it with a letter addressed to the chairman of the Department of Elections and also in the box that the party got to see. What frustrated me is we had 0 response from either of them. Not even just, hey, we're sorry to see this, but it's now involved in a law, a criminal investigation. We can't do anything. There was no comment. Mm-hmm. And what got me was those thousands of signatures where each individual saying, I don't know about this guy, but I want to see him on the ballot. I think he deserves to be on it. Their wishes were denied because of an act that somebody took. And then the Department of Elections and the party did nothing to correct it. And even though the way the law is written, because that's election interference. So legally they can go after the person who did it or the persons as they look at it, but they don't have anything in the law to fix the victims. How do you make that right to the victims? The law doesn't state that. Law needs to be addressed because I'm hearing this happen more and more than people will talk about. So that's what got me to this situation. And then I was reached out to by several groups and people all over the state that were disenfranchised because really lifetime, if you look at who had more votes, me or the Republican candidate, at least I ran in another election. I might have lost it, but I've actually received votes where he's never received a single vote from anybody. And so it comes down to, hey, wait, this isn't fair. And I heard people boycotting the entire election. And I didn't want to see that happen because everybody in the party then loses. Down ballots, everything from school board members, superintendents, or board of supervisors to delegates, the AG, lieutenant governor, and the governor. If my involvement gets them out, people are saying I'm splitting the ticket. If that happens, but it brings the voters to the poll, then the voters come. I don't see splitting the ticket. I think I'm providing what people have, their rights and liberty to vote for a candidate they want, any way they want.
I think people are just a little too fearful when it comes to their protectiveness regarding the party they like. I remember in my 2019 city council run where it was just me and one other person. I still got the I'm splitting votes away from thing, even though we were at different parties. So, yeah, I think people overuse the phrase splitting a ticket. I don't think they fully understand it. But in any case, I think it's good that you're still participating in this and being a voice and getting your opinions out. And that is where I want to take the next question. Right. I will admit, I voted in the Democratic primary. Jay Jones for Attorney General is who I voted for. Alex Bastani for Lieutenant Governor is who I voted for. And there just wasn't one on the Democrat side for governor because they just only had Abigail. So in my studying for that, I watched the debate, I think by WABC 13 or something like that in Virginia, hosted the lieutenant governor candidates. I took some of their questions. I would like to field them to you to field your responses. on
All right.
that. So let us go to the first one here. They wanted to know what actions you would take to protect displaced Virginia workers and Virginia's economy from what they viewed as destructive cuts from Washington.
You know, I've gotten asked that since this all started, since President Trump was inaugurated and this started happening. I don't believe there's a magic wand that fixes it overnight, but I've been a strong advocate again that, um, growing up in Northern Virginia primarily, and then also when you get down into the peninsula area, is basically a company town, an old company town like you used to see the steel companies, and the town was in debt to them. That that feed off of and are dependent totally on the economy that the federal government provides. And I think we've gotten a little bit lazy and reliant on that when we have so much more to offer. And we need to start bringing in these other industries that are available, that want to, that we have the resources, not only in those areas, but across the states. The entire Commonwealth of Virginia, to give people options and stop being so dependent on the federal government. It isn't always going to be there. We went through the BRAC closing of bases years ago that hurt a lot of places where the bases closed and devastated economies around it. Other places besides Virginia were hurt very hard. But that can happen at any time with any administration, now or in the future. And we need to keep our eyes on that. And we have to be aware we need to balance. Anybody who's ever done strategic planning, you never put all your eggs in one basket. I think we put, and a lot of it's geographically. We're right next to Washington, D.C. We have the biggest military base in the world here in Virginia. You become dependent on those things. But you go out towards Southwest, we have an entire other ability to bring in different industries. And there's industries that we need to be going after, that we can draw the same talent pool that is losing these jobs and create new careers and stuff that are no longer dependent. And that's really where we have to start looking and going and planning for the future, just not today, because new careers don't pop up overnight. I mean, there's not that magic wand, and you have to be honest about it. There just isn't it. So.
Well, my next question, again from that lieutenant governor debate of Democratic candidates. There's a proposed casino for Tyson's Corner. There is one here in Portsmouth, and they're building one in Norfolk. Do you accept casino gaming? Do you view them as a positive to the tax base, or are negatives to the community larger than the positives?
I think that there isn't a set answer. I think when it comes to casinos, it has to be taken where they are. I've seen some of these casinos go into places that are basically gambling warehouses. They're not destinations. They're not offering anything that's going to bring, like you go out to Vegas and a company can do a convention out there and they have the convention halls to bring that, and then the gambling's the side thing. And it feeds off, and sometimes I think feeds off the local community more than it's providing to the local communities. Being somebody in Northern Virginia and knowing Tyson's like the back of my hand, I just actually was up there last week for a couple of days in Tyson's. I don't believe Tyson's Corner is the right place for a casino. Do I believe there's places in Virginia that would benefit both the economy and can be a draw and they could build it out? I think the casino down in Danville was done more as a destination. I saw some plans for other casinos that never happened that are. So it really needs to come to, is it the right fit, the right place, and offering the right thing? Because the last thing I wanted to do is just become something that takes away from the local population and not really provides. These gambling warehouses, these gaming houses, that's not what I see as a casino. When I think of a casino, I think of a Vegas or Atlantic City where there's shows, there's hotels, there's things that people say, I want to go on vacation and go there. And it brings people to that area. Just, hey, I can go gambling. You might have somebody from 50 miles away drive for the day to hit the tables or something, or the slots, but it's not bringing the true economic base that you need. So again, I'm not 100% against gambling or the casinos. I think they need to be in the right place with the right plan around it and the right situation to work all the way around. They really need to be local, and you got to let the locals make a decision as well. It can't just be forced on them. They have to have a say. So.
All right, my last question that is from that particular debate. They touched on COVID and how COVID created a learning loss among Virginia students. And they wanted to know among those candidates. So we want to know among you now, do you have ideas to help turn that around and improve student education?
I think when you back out, I'm not sure how many people realize this past session, the legislative session we had, there was a motion to actually stop the religious exemption for homeschooling. And what I became aware of, and I didn't even know this beforehand, that since COVID, homeschooling has increased 36% in Virginia. So I think what happened was when parents truly got to see curriculums and what their kids were being taught and learned and how they were learning, parents took notice and took action, and started homeschooling. Some parents moved. If you look at private schools, their enrollments have shot up. Clearly, Virginia is missing the boat 100% on education. We need to get back to basics in that. I mean, all these other things that become controversial need to be addressed. But when you have kids, I was actually in a bank and there was a kid opening an account. That mother told him to sign his name. The kid did not know how to sign a name. He just printed his name out there. When you're not even able to write cursive, when you can't read and write, you're having test scores that are coming lower than you ever see. We maybe at some point we can go back to all kinds of other stuff, but we need to concentrate on basic education, reading, writing, arithmetic, history, obviously, and real history that's involved, and get back to that. I also believe we need to bring back trades, shop classes, home ec, things like that. Not only does it provide a skill when people get out there and, wow, something broke in my yard, I can drive a nail into it now. I don't have to call repair. But it can start somebody on a career that's not white collar, that can send them into another career. I had my air conditioner in my house break yesterday, and the guy came. His company they hire kids out of high school. They can't get kids that want to work in it or start working it. And you know what? These guys get paid pretty good and start, like you said, have a future that they can open their own business someday. It might not be the corner office in a $2,000 designer suit someday, and flying Lear jets, but it's a good career and a good future. And we've created a society that overlooks that, and we need it, especially when it's 100 degrees in your AC fix and somebody tells you it's 2 weeks before the repairman can get out there because there isn't it.
And Virginians definitely know that today with how hot it is.
So we need to go back to some of that. We need to do that. And I think we need to get the parents were involved during COVID and saw what's going on. You have to keep people's involved. I know I wasn't a great kid when I was in elementary school and high school. I was not a great student, I should say. I was a great kid. I wasn't a great student. But it wasn't until I was sophomore in high school when I was diagnosed that I was dyslexic. And that changed my whole life. They were able to help me with it, change my future, changed everything with it. We need to pay attention to that, get the parents involved, because when the parents involved, those things can take place. And parents are the ones, kids go home. If there's nobody there, nobody involved, homeworks aren't getting done. The additional help that a kid might need, or even if the parent doesn't know what's going on in the school, they can't help. They can't give the kid the hand. There needs to be that. We need to work more on a more open. And maybe, I hate to say it, I know it's kind of slipped away, bring back the PTAs and stuff, get parents back in those schools and see what their kids are doing and work with it. I hate to see our schools disappear because parents are homeschooled. Nothing wrong with homeschoolers, but the only reason people are doing that is because they're not happy with what the kids are being taught. And we need to address those and really get back to true education and basics again.
I want to shift away from the debate I watched and the questions they asked and move a little bit more toward asking questions based on the issues from your website. And the first one I want to do is see if I can share the screen for that real quick. Should be this one right here. There we go. Hold on. There we go. I have your website up with your issues page. I will try to ask questions based on that, starting from a stance of being pro-family. How does a Lieutenant Governor Curran protect families in Virginia?
Family values are kind. I mean, there you're right. You have the family values. We do know there was the issue, which is still debated, with the FBI looking at um, Catholics as certain Catholics as extreme terrorists and things like that. That should never come in. People have the right to practice their own religions, and that religion usually extends to the family and their life to do that. Um, we also need to support that comes out of that. A lot of the community support a lot of communities get outside of what government provides come from faith-based organizations, no matter what your religion is. Some of the food banks, some of the birthing centers, support pregnancy centers, um, counseling places, even some mental health organizations are based on those things, which if we maintain and ensure the freedom of those religions, those places to function, it strengthens the family. It can provide counseling for the families dealing with issues and problems. We've gone through a tight economy and stuff, and anybody knows when you have economic issues in a family, that strains the family. It splits families, and we need to bring that back together. We got to have families. We have to create an environment that allows families to thrive and stick together. And when you have that, it becomes stronger. Now, that might sound a little unicornish and butterflies and stuff like that and stuff, but it starts at the basics. And if you have, again, it goes back to building a strong economy, creates a stronger family, because families aren't dealing with nothing will split a family harder than economic hardships. And those start splitting. You also end up with crime in there. If you could get, believe it or not, a lot of faith-based areas stop a lot of that. People have other beliefs and hopes that they don't turn to. Those, as well as drug substance abuses, all those are affected to keep the core of that family together and strong. And, if you have a strong family core, most families, most kids become more successful students with a strong family and go on to be more successful adults. So that's.
Now, my next question is probably a topic that is the most personal for a lot of people when it comes to politics, especially for my progressive view. And it always seems to be in the news recently after Georgia's news story where a brain dead woman, Adriana Smith, was physically kept alive in order to incubate a fetus. And a Florida news story where a Republican politician, Kat Cammack, nearly died in a hospital over an ectopic pregnancy, which wasn't treated as fast as she wanted because Florida's law may have punished the doctors for eradicating the pregnancy. She ended up getting treated with the drug, which ended up dissolving the fetal tissue, but a Republican congresswoman got treatment in a state with a 6-week heartbeat law and is now blaming the left, like myself, for fear-mongering on this issue. So that law still was created. So to me, pro-life means more than just a fetus, more than just a baby, more than just young children. It means adults too. It's across the world, and especially for women. And I want to address your campaign plank being pro-life. What does a Lieutenant Governor John Curran wish to do to protect that?
I'm a very pro-life. I'm Catholic. Believe pro-life, done March for Life. I'm a member of Knights of Columbus, so very active in the March for Life events. But it was a young girl when I ran for supervisor that opened my eyes even more. And when it comes to the medical side of this, to me, there's the true medical side where a mother's life is in danger, things like that. There should be no issue when it comes to those kind of events. I don't care about 6 weeks, 6 months. When those are life-saving issues that need to be addressed. Where I want to go back to, because we can't address the issue of abortion until we actually deal with this term of choice, having choice for a woman to have a choice. What is a woman's choice? If we don't provide those choices to them, if we don't provide an avenue for support, for counseling, even if I'm a father of 2 daughters, and as much as I'd be supportive if either one of them came to me and said, "Dad, I'm pregnant," I'd be supportive. That's still a hard conversation for either one of them to come back to. And I'm not saying that when I first hear it, I'm not going to lose it. And I think most young girls or even young men who have to go back and tell their parents, "Hey, I've got my girlfriend pregnant and this is what's happening." It's not easy. And sometimes you need somebody to go mediate that for them. We need to provide resources where women not only can just end their pregnancy, but give them options to keep their babies. I met a mother who had an abortion when she was a freshman in college. She had her plans to get a lawyer. She's currently is an attorney. She's a mother of 3. But when she was a freshman in college, she got pregnant. She was scared. She didn't know where to go to, how to talk to anybody else, and had the abortion. She's now, that was 20 years ago. She tells me she still has nightmares and thinks about, nobody talks about those effects to the women who do have abortions because they didn't know where to seek that help. Our adoption system is a mess. The rules behind adoption, there's private groups that want to take on children to help adopt them. We need to rebuild our adoption system, both in the Commonwealth of Virginia and in the United States, and create those choices more clearly and more available to a woman to make a true choice. I'm not saying take away her choice, but let's give a real choice and an option. If it's to have it and give it up for adoption, then it's done. If it's a means to say, well, I want to complete my education, my college, my high school, whatever it is, to have a career, to have the life I want without sacrifice, is there support to do that? Daycare support, means to get that done. Those avenues need to be there. And again, a lot of those programs are provided, as I said earlier, by faith-based programs, as well as there's obviously state programs and federal programs that do it, but they're hard to find. They really are. If you start Googling that, they are really hard to find, some of those programs. That we need to make them cleaner, more available, more accessible to these girls. And the men, we need to start holding our young men to a standard. Mm-hmm. If you can go out and get a girl pregnant, you need to start standing up for it too. And I think that comes again from the home up. If a boy wants to act like a man, he's got to act like a man and do what he needs to do and follow up. Again, bringing back values. But again, we can't address abortion till we really do fix this pro-choice, and the choice has to be more than just, I have a choice to have the abortion. No, you have the choice to have the abortion, to put it up for adoption, to keep the child. There's a whole list of different choices you have, and let a girl truly make that choice and give her time to do it. The other thing this young girl brought up that I never even thought about, a lot of women, when they're pregnant, or even when they're not pregnant, if they're very athletic and they're training and stuff like that, they skip their cycles. So when you put timelines like 12 weeks or 8 weeks or 6 weeks or whatever on there, a young girl might not even know she's pregnant, even if she missed a cycle, until it's too late because of those kind of things. We need to get a little more aware of that. Obviously, my goal would give enough choice where abortion isn't the way to go. But again, I think if a woman has that, and it's been proven, there is some states and counties who have tried this, and it's actually dropped the abortion rate and actually saved the counties money that they've tried it in. That most people didn't believe would happen. It actually did. So I want to see us address those. And then once there, let's start restricting other things if we have to. But at first, until we can actually say we're providing a woman a choice, we can't take away something else, and we need to make those choices, give them those choices.
Next up, what I want to do, again, throwing your website up here, which, let me get over that real quick, is curranforvirginia.com, and I'm using the /issues section right now, because the next topic is going to be on guns, which is going to make me want to bring up say no to democratic socialism. As a libertarian, socialism doesn't work, so this libertarian probably won't like what I'm about to say. But I personally am outwardly anti-gun, and compared to everyone around me, kind of even more so anti-gun, because I don't exactly like an armed police force and an armed military, because I guess maybe I'm more of a pacifist or a Quaker or whatever. But I still study history, and I like things like the Black Panthers, who kept themselves armed in order to provide a force to protect their community from aggressive government. And you're pro-Second Amendment. What does this mean for Lieutenant Governor John Curran?
Well, I think the Second Amendment is exactly that. It's a constitutional right. People argue on, well, it's a militia, it's this, it's that. I started actually going for a doctorate, and I will never achieve that doctorate. But one thing I got to study was the Federalist Papers, which I think everybody should take a chance and read. And you started realizing we always thought that our founding fathers were just these geniuses that saw the future, but they weren't. There are people who just dealt with exactly that, uprising against a government, an overreach government that they finally stood up for. And the way our country's set up, it's our job. The government works for us. And I think sometimes we forget that as well. I think as the government forgets that government we control. They're our employees. We're not their servants. And I think it's important to keep that. I think that as much as I believe that people have the right to carry guns, I have a concealed carry. I carry a gun. And I do it. I'm trained. I'm a veteran. I learned how to shoot a gun in the military as well. And I think that comes with the responsibility of having that gun. I think there's people who don't want them and shouldn't have to have them and shouldn't have to have them around. With that, I believe at the same time, our gun laws against people who wrongfully use the guns, wrongfully possess guns, steal guns, use the guns in acts of crime, I actually think those penalties need to be increased. I think that if you use a gun in a crime, it should be a long time till you see the light of day when you start misusing the guns and using against those things. To have it as a self-defense, I think is you're right. You're should have it, and you could probably save a life with it. There's that joke that goes around that the U.S., as powerful as we are and as rich that we have one thing that no other country has, and that's armed rednecks, and that, if we ever invaded way before the Marines are going to show up, these guys would be out there defending our country ahead of time. I know a couple of guys that go out shooting on the weekend, and I think they could probably take on a militia of it, a thing of arms. I take the Second Amendment serious and gun ownership and gun possession serious. And most of the people I know, or all the people that I know that carry weapons, have the concealed carry, take that very seriously as well. And I think that comes with the right to have it is the responsibility that comes with it. Again, if you misuse that responsibility, I think we have laws in place that really need to be put down and enforced without question of it. And that's where I think some of this stuff mixes. I think we get people off easy when it comes to some of these things. And that's where I think we need to do. If you have a stolen gun and you're not supposed to have a gun and you're carrying around and you commit a crime or dealing drugs, you need to go away, and you need to go away a long, long time. So
I follow. Does pro-business mean that the worker has to suffer? I believe you may be pro-right to work, and I view it as contributing to bringing down Virginia's scoring when it comes to where you work at. It's high in terms of ranking to run a business. We're one of the best states to run a business, but it's one of the lowest states when it comes to working for a business. So where does Lieutenant Governor Curran wish to help on trying to make both high?
Well, nobody opens a business to lose money or not to be successful. When you decide to put the risk behind it, I've opened businesses. I had businesses that were great. I had a business that wasn't so great as well. And, I cut paychecks to employees where I didn't take paychecks for 6-7 months myself, and was, eating peanut butter sandwiches, but my people were paid. The pro business is exactly that. We need to make it easy to have a business right now. I'll be honest. So, especially in some counties and cities across the Commonwealth, the process to open a business, the requirements, the paperwork, the regulations put in place are so difficult. You need to have the money also to hire an attorney to walk you through it, and it shouldn't be that hard. Now, I'm pro right to work. I think you open that business, you have a person, you can bring them in, that person can negotiate their salary the best they can. They should be paid the fair wage, as it is. I also think certain unions, when you look at the electricians union, you look at pipe fitters union, you look at the plumbers union, the HVAC, those people do a very important thing by training these people. They come in as apprentices, become tradesmen, work their way up to be masters, and provide career opportunities and a pathway, which is also good. I also think that there is certain unions that have cost businesses, the state, counties money as well, because they're just pulling requirements and putting restrictions that have basically forced businesses out of the United States and throughout the state. So it's a fine line. If a company wants to go union and their employees want to be union, that has their right. But I don't think they should take away the right to have the right to work and people not to, you should never force somebody to become a union. You shouldn't force a person to be able to do anything. That's our freedom, our liberty to work the job how we want to work it. I've never been a member of a union. Every job I ever had, I negotiated my own pay. There's times after I negotiated my own pay and I worked there for a while, I was like, man, I'm not getting paid squat. I need to do this again. But usually stuck that way. You live and learn. You learn, hey, if I'm going to get it, I need to get it the first time. I got to ask for it up front. And you learn that. But again, you have to be attractive to somebody to say, this is the place and this is the area I'm going to invest and risk my life into to start a business. I don't want sweatshops here in Virginia. I want industry that pays or high paying, like I say, career industry stuff. And we also have a lot of agriculture, and I think a lot of that pay issue actually hits a lot of their agriculture jobs we have. But that's tight. It's expensive to be in agriculture. My wife's father was a dairy farmer growing up. Money's tight. You're raising a crop and you're doing it. So I can understand where it comes into it. But again, you can't build an economy before you even start by throwing restrictions on business, because people go out elsewhere. It's like you mentioned, the winner up in New York for mayor, his idea of making government-run grocery stores. And everything's going to be paid for by the rich. Well, guess what? The rich are going to move to Florida from New York, and there's not going to be rich to pay. And when the government owns grocery stores, those grocery store employees become government employees. That means they're got government benefits, government tech, and those have to be paid by the price. And I think you're going to see very high prices in government-owned grocery stores if that's the case. And it's going to drive the industry out. I mean, it's nice to think that, but we all learn socialism. Any place socialism been has never worked. It's failed. And it fails eventually in the long run. Sometimes it takes longer time, but it's a free market works. Greed gets in the way sometimes, but that's where competition comes and usually adjusts that. So if you have also an economic base that brings competition into industries, that's where you go. Grocery store gets greedy and starts charging big money. You open the grocery store across the street and be cheaper and watch how things change. It happens. But yeah, I mean, again, if a person wants to join a union, that should be their choice. If it's teachers, if it's truckers, if it's name the industry, it should be their choice to join or not to join. And I think as a business owner, I actually had a business where people talked about unionizing. They started looking at, they had a better deal with me than they would have had with the unions. So they kept with it. I know I might have been the exception at the time, and who knows how long that would have went. I would have told you this, though, if the union came in, I would have shut the business down because I wouldn't have been able to afford it to keep with some of the, what the future could have been. I didn't want to be handlocked to it. And I think that's what we have to keep in mind, that the guys who are investing, these greedy billionaires or whatever, look at, I'm not going to lose my billionaire's money. I'm going to keep it. So I'll hire people, have a job, but if you force me out, I'll close. I'll go someplace else that's more friendly to me. So it's a fine line there. And again, there's some really good unions out there that provide a really good thing to their employees. And so I don't want to kick them, but I think there's also some that suffocate some businesses and drive them out. So
next up, I want to combine a couple of subjects into one before I go into finalizing our interview today. How does a Lieutenant Governor, John Curran, help with public safety and veterans in Virginia?
I've actually, public safety, and it goes deep, and I want to expand public safety to, let's say, public servants. Okay, I hate the word servant, but let's look at teachers, nurses, paramedics, police, fire, and the military. They are probably one for the jobs they do lowest paid for the amount of hours and the work they do. And a lot of these are locally paid or whatever, and they're driven by the economy and driven by what comes in, and as well as tax dollars. I mean, I actually, when I see what some areas hire a police officer at, I'm surprised you can get a police officer nowadays. Same thing with firemen. There's other options. One thing I would advocate for, if you are a public servant, I would eliminate state income tax up to, for public. Actually, I think if you make under $50,000, you shouldn't be paying state income tax to begin with. But I think that because you're getting most of that back anyway. But if you're willing to work and put your life on the line to serve the public, we should give you a break and give you the ability to keep some of your money and support your family and things like that. It's a hard job. It's a hard job to fill. It strains. The stress on those and some of these jobs carry back to the families. And we need to look at them as, when you need somebody like that, they become your heroes, and we've got to start treating them as our heroes and taking care of them and keeping them there. And the military as well. We need to find ways. We have so many military in the state of Virginia, and when they get out, we're not doing a lot to keep them here. These are well-trained people with great work ethics, and we got to find a way to keep them here as well. If it's non-tax on retirement, but they've worked hard. They're putting their life on the line for us, and we need to recognize it and make sure they have what they have, benefits wise, health wise, and as well as pay and offset. Again, a lot of these people are paid by localities, not the states. So what the state can do to help offset those, that strain on the local economy it's a thing. It's like the car tax. Everybody wants to get rid of the car tax. Well, that car tax pays a lot of these public servants, these police and fire and those people. And it's already, they're getting paid very little. I want to get rid of it, but I told somebody the other day, I've been driving in Virginia for 44 years. When I started driving, we were paying car tax. And every election I ever seen for those 44 years, every candidate says we're going to get rid of the car tax. And guess what? 44 years later, we're still paying the car tax. Mm-hmm. I think there's ways to change it. We need to adjust it without just saying, oh, we're taking away car tax, but we're going to increase your property tax now by 20% more. There is options to do it. I think it's more of a penalty tax. But if we yank it, there's a lot of counties. Look at Fairfax County, one of the richest counties in the United States, let alone Virginia. They're just $500 million deficit they're looking at this year. You take the money they get off of property car taxes, they're going to have a hard time. They're going to have a huge deficit, and that's going to be police and firemen. That's going to take that hit, and teachers. So we need to look at other ways. And again, generate more, get good careers, higher paying careers. Those taxes come into locality. People spend that money. It will generate more revenue base, and we could start paying those people what they deserve to do. So,
thank you for all that. I'm curious. Let's just say you were canvassing the neighborhood and you knocked on my door, and we met for the first time. What would be your pitch as to why me, the voter, should vote for John Curran in a write-in capacity for Lieutenant Governor of Virginia?
Well, I think the first is it's your choice. Right now, and the way most people see it, as you mentioned earlier in the interview, the parties create these candidates. Here you go, now vote for one. It's like think of if you're playing a game of cards and you're dealt 2 cards. Okay, there's my 2 cards. Well, what if you want another card? You can actually write your own card now, and it gives you that option. So the write-in candidate, and I understand there's more write-in candidates coming in different areas for different things, and I really applaud them. It's a hard thing to do. Plus, because of being a write-in and considered an independent, I'm not beholden now to my party or any other party. I'm beholden to the person who are voting for me. And to me, that reinforces your liberty and your freedom to have that choice to say, I'm not happy with candidate one. I'm not happy with candidate two. I'm going with, and I'm writing in my own opinion and my choice. And I think I have, and I always have been a believer, as I said earlier, that there's a middle ground. And I had friends that actually say I'm very conservative when it comes to my wallet, but I'm very liberal when it comes to my heart, which I won't admit that to anybody. But I think I'm actually open. I believe there is an avenue, and we need somebody more moderate that now, if I'm elected lieutenant governor as a write-in, I don't have the party to tell me we got you elected. Now you have to follow our line and you better march in our order. I've had the party tell me they're not going to let me run for office. Some people, they wouldn't let me run for office for 4 years because I'm challenging the nominee. So I think I'm the fresh choice that people actually will have a voice, because right now the only party I'm running with is the people, is you. And maybe you're maybe we don't agree on everything. You don't agree with my gun views, where it's not, I don't agree with yours. But again, if you came to me with that, I might not say I'm taking away people's guns, but I will say I'll protect you from people who shouldn't have the guns, and that could be something that says I could sleep a little better on that side than where it is. So I think I become the moderate voice that can bring a solution in the middle and basically keep the number one, what I think is the most important thing in this election, and that is the people of Virginia, not the two parties, not a third party, but the people of Virginia, which it's about time they have somebody that truly represents them, not what they're told to represent by somebody who backed them.
And how should the voter here in Virginia follow you? What are your socials? How do we reach out and stay input?
The best way is, if you just Google John Curran, Virginia, you'll see everything pops up underneath that. The website is www, obviously, curranforvirginia.com, and it's spelled out. Curran for Virginia is all spelled out, and that's CURRAN, and that's very important on the write-in, because that's the way you got to write it in on the ballot in November, or even in starting early voting. That will also take you to Instagram, Facebook account. I do have a X account, but I'll be honest, I'm not very big on X. I'm not running a lot of X, and it has nothing to do with Elon Musk or anything like that. It just, you seem to get more response off of Facebook and Instagram rapidly than I get with the X platform. Again, though, between those, we are about to relaunch a new, fresher version of the website, more showing the write-in, and giving people instructions on how to write in and what it means to them, or how to do that, and re-clarifying some of these the points that you brought up. One of the points that are missing under that, which is very important to me as well, and is the mental health issue that you really couldn't get into. That we need to. I was actually told by some police officers, I didn't realize it, they don't have the mental health officers. So if they have a victim, it takes a cop off the streets to go sit in a hospital or something and watch them when they should be out. And they're not they're trained in how to deal straight in, but they're not social workers. They're not those people. So we need to provide, I don't want to take money away from police for that. We need to get more of that money into the mental health industry to start dealing with some of the issues we have, and taking it out of the hands of the law enforcement people who have real things to do, more important things to do to keep us safe. So those will be up there.
I follow, and I do want to thank you, of course, Mr. John Curran, for joining the top spot for politics here in Virginia, SchezzWho. And it means a lot to me. So I just want to hope you have a great evening. And I definitely want to stay in touch for the possibility of either more visits or perhaps some debates down the line.
Sounds great. And I appreciate you having me on. Thank you very much.
Thank you. You have a great night. Now, SchezzWho viewers, that was John Curran, independent candidate for Virginia Lieutenant Governor. You have to write in his name come November time. I suggest looking him up by November, studying his planks alongside that of John Reed and Ghazala Hashmi, and make your choice wisely. Again, that's the Lieutenant Governor race here in Virginia. Thank you for tuning into SchezzWho. Make sure to like and subscribe to this channel, share it around, and we'll see you for the next great SchezzWho.